welcome to T+T Doubleshot. I am Trent Bell, and I'm an architectural photographer, and this is The Wizard.
No, it's not. Tim, studio manager, retoucher. If you don't know that by now, welcome.
Magician, wizard. All right, what are we doing first here?
We're just going over this interior here.
Interiors.
These are the raw images.
All right.
I included, it was just three images, really. Mm-hmm. But I included, you had done like a previous like composition, and that I don't know if you decided that, either that didn't get selected or you decided like, we want to move back a little bit, or maybe it was a test.
A lot of times you'll do one and then you're just like, and kind of move it around.
Because I know you were talking about in the last video when we were going through all the images how this interior was difficult. You think pulling up to it that it's like, oh, we got this, but then you probably moved around a bunch, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it just it was a really hard one because having both chairs where they naturally were was blocking the island and everything there, and it just wasn't working. It took quite a bit of work on this one to find the right composition for it for some reason. And knowing, in this case, you were shooting towards the brighter light, so it took a lot of probably, I would imagine, light bouncing off the ceiling to fill in some of those windows. But were you able to get the
I don't think you
and
did the flash on this. At least I didn't see it.
Interesting. I know this column in the right corner is important and probably difficult because it's a continuously wrapping surface that has a nice shadow kind of fade to it and everything else, gradient, which is nice. This wall on the left, really important for them, that kind of leather stitched wall. Getting the styling right so it's just complementing it but not blocking things, chop or corners on pillows, all that. And then, the height of the tripod here was really critical because you have every single horizontal line is going to be affected in some way by the height of your tripod. Mm-hmm. So every single horizontal line is going to start to conflict or reveal or get too close, minimize, go away, depending on where your tripod is. So at this height, you just barely see the vertical surface of the counter beyond the island. So you get that white line there. If you go down lower, you lose that. If you go up too high, you start to lose the feel of the image.
Right.
And right now already we're very high up in this space. I think we were almost at the extent of the tripod, but we needed to spread out that kind of living room feel to the island. We needed to let them breathe. So if you didn't have this set up in the foreground and you were only focusing on this, I would have been much lower, straight on,
right,
and it would have been fine. But that's not the complete story of the space, so you have to accommodate it. So like I said, we took out the other chair over here. We moved this chair and everything over to be able to relate to that. We had to pay a lot of attention of where to put this coffee table right in front of the sofa, how far out or closer back. This little gesture of the flowers, is it going to be dead center in the whole thing? Is this coffee table going to be dead center, or is it going to be a little off center? How does this little wood side table, do we leave it in or do we take it out? Do we put something on there? Where do we put that thing that's on there? It's just endless, infinite amount of options that you have to just feel your way through. And through feeling your way through that again and again and again and figuring out what is successful and what isn't, you keep all of that in the back of your head every time you approach a new situation. And to work with people who've done it a lot, it just makes your learning curve just go right up. Yeah. And so for me, working with Kyle Hopner from New England Home, who used to be at New England Home, I believe, and then working with Pascal, they're just both very, very detail-oriented, and they can see those things, the conflict points of like apexes or corners coming together that create this visual contrast or conflict. Was really interesting to see and to deal with. And now anytime you're working an image, there's always going to be some kind of like lesser evil that you have to deal with.
Kind of.
Like where this foot comes down at the end of the sofa there, that's like 2 points coming together. It wasn't glaring enough in this entire composition to change it or move the camera enough to compensate not having that at all. Because you move this over and you start to get the top left side of the chair sneaking too close to the side of the column and the right side of the chair getting too close to this other mullion. So there's just all these things, like as soon as you affect one thing, it has a trickle down effect of, affecting the other thing. So there's all that to go through constantly. Your light levels here to work on all that. Which one did we end up going with in post? This wider one, right?
Yeah, with the yep.
I mean, to me, I like this composition a little bit better, but this one has a more expansive feel to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like how this area here is compressed a little bit more, and I like that composition a little better. But you do what you do, and you have your opinions, but the client has the final say on what's going to represent their work, how they intended it to be received. So
and then these were the 2 lifestyle options that we went with. There were probably like 30 or so that we shot.
Here's the assistant, Everett, on his phone while we're shooting. Everett's a good friend of mine from way back that was, it's great to work with, who lives in D.C. So,
but when you're shooting lifestyle like this, you don't use any lighting or anything. It's just...
I try not to, because if you use a strobe, you freeze them. And you'll freeze them, and then they'll have a blur after that from the natural light.
Okay.
So it's either you're making them crispy or they're slightly blurred. If they're going to be slightly blurred, you're going to have to use constant light. So either like, a video light of some sort to be able to allow that blur to be smooth and consistent, or you have to just completely freeze them. I find when you completely make lifestyle crisp, that it becomes part of the fixed part of the design more than like a natural thing moving through it. Really. Right.
Yeah.
So in some way you're referencing on a non-articulate level, you're kind of referencing this is not part of the space. It's a moving aspect of it, which is fine. So, and Carlos and I forget who that was that we can't see their face there, but they both worked really well for this. Just them looking natural. I'm sure I had them doing the Rubik's Cube thing too at some point, but they just looked comfortable enough and natural there to where we didn't need to do that. And then we just had her holding the laptop and coming to the meeting. So worked out well. Compositionally, that's everything we had considered. Lighting wise, I mean, I love this feel, like in the center of the image there. It's this very soft light, but you can still tell there's a directionality to it where you look at the lights and there's just this soft shadow on them. And it feels calm rather than just really like excited or energetic or sharp. It has a little bit more serene feel to it, which I think is nice.
The challenge there is, taking that soft, high, that exposure, and then if you want to keep it like that, and then bringing everything else in. That's the like all this stuff. Yeah.
But that
we'll get there next.
Composition and lighting, it looks like this was mostly all just natural light. Anytime there's light on more than one side of a composition, you can start to feel like, we can do this without strobes because there's going to be enough available light and we're just blending. But if there's a harsh amount of light coming, like if we had direct sunlight coming in there, I would have definitely had to use a strobe just to even it out a little bit between the two. I think that's most everything there compositionally that I would have considered if we want to move into the post part of this.
I think so that's anytime, just before we do that, when there's an image like this, hop back in here. There is no strobes. And the dynamic range is really, really great. I'll build like an HDR just in Lightroom just to see what it looks like, and that's what this is.
Yep.
It's like that's probably pulling the extremes of it, so you can kind of get a little bit of a sense of. I don't really ever use like an HDR image, but it just gives you a sense of like what it could look like.
Yeah, it gives you a bit of a roadmap.
Yeah, something to look at, and like, yeah, that's kind of where I want to get it, and I think I can do that with just the layers. So
the wizard reveals his methods.
We'll hop over here, and so this is the final image we looked at.
Whoop.
Fancy corners.
Fancy corners.
Yeah, this is the image that we went through on the first video, and with the lifestyle and everything, and then that's where we started, which is probably the middle exposure.
Middle exposure with highlights brought in quite a bit.
Probably dialed all the way to the end, like highlights all the way down, shadows almost all the way up, and you can get away with that with the Fuji files, and you don't. It doesn't hurt the image at all,
which is amazing to me, because when I first started doing this, if you pushed it beyond like 20%, like with the first 5Ds and stuff,
right.
it
I know. I always
so...
had the habit of like not going too far with those, because just out of fear of like too much noise, or your highlights just aren't recoverable.
It just gets milky. But with this,
weird. you can really go almost all the way and be like, that's still
right
acceptable.
Now. The things that look weird to me are these vertical pieces of wood on either side of that black square in the center frame. They look a little too something saturated and weird in midtones, and then also this wood frame over here.
Well, we might deal with that. Let's see what we do. I forget. That's just just working my highlights.
Working my highlights.
And so I don't know. I'm not bringing every single thing in perfectly out here in the windows, because I also know that there's lifestyle going right here, and that's so backlit that it still needs to be pretty bright right here in order for that to match.
If you go too far bringing the windows in, it just is so. I just cannot believe that some architectural photographers, or just in general photographers, will bring in windows to that degree.
Yeah.
And it's just so painfully horrible and obvious, but yet, I've had some clients that do really good work request this very odd dynamic of like this bringing of the windows, and it looks so
I almost
fake.
like sometimes I've seen it done. Some people do it, but like you just select out the windows and you don't make them white, but you bring up the brightness so much that it almost looks like like there's a sheet outside. It's so soft and bright, and it just you're saying I don't want to see outside, but it just looks so nice to me.
Yeah, it's better in my opinion.
So happy medium here, right?
Happy medium.
There's the mask for that. Selected out the windows, pen tooled it probably. Flick that on again and again, and this is that wood floor it's that shiny finish, and that's always a challenge. Like
the issues I see with this now at this point are still a little bit with the wood and a little bit of blue in the reflective horizontal surfaces, like the top of this guy here, the highlights in the top of the chair, and the highlight kind of generally in that area,
right?
And right here and right there, they all feel just a little too blue, and like over here feels a little blue. The column gets a little discolored, but I'm sure we're taking care of that.
I think we're working our way there. More window detail,
window highlight detail,
and I think that's probably the level that we left it for exterior. It's just kind
of
busy out there.
A little bit got a lot better on the right side of frame over there. That bringing that dark area in on the right there helped out. And
then just some dark areas here that I wasn't. It's just focused on the vase. Just look closer in the other vase. Just because they went a little black.
Yeah.
Just from the base.
Toggle it back and forth. Yeah. So you're just kind of bringing up shadows in there a little bit.
The highlights on the edge of these just a little bit. That looks like.
Yep. Gotcha.
Because they kind of just go black. Right. There's no shape to them.
That looks, that's a lot better.
If you zoom in and do it.
Boom. Yep.
It's kind of hard to see.
Just helps you
they
read
are, like,
the
black.
shape of them a little more.
And then retouch. I determine the levels are at a good spot to work on the retouching, and that's mostly the ceiling.
This is the pimple layer.
Hinges on the edge of the frame there for that door. Those are always distracting when you clean it up and you just eliminate those.
Yeah, that looks way better.
A whole lot here.
Good designers. What can you say?
Yeah. It's the color of that little.
Throw in the layer below it though. The retouch. What's this?
That's just. It's just brightening up that little plate of greens there.
Oh, that's it. And that okay. So this is a organics.
I think
layer.
It's just giving it like a little saturation. Yeah, organics. That wall, giving that wall some more. Trying to bring out the texture in that wall. It's I think it's like probably like a slate tile or something.
Right.
It's kind of like a marble look, and just to kind of, it's probably just the curves layer. Like, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, much more readable there now.
Yeah. I think these color fill layers are for the furniture. Just looking at it, I'm going to guess it's the furniture. Yeah, I think so. This is probably pulling out that blue you're talking about. It's on this chair here. Yeah, see, like down in here.
Yep. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Just removes that blue and just brings, you just sample, the color from the leather there, and then a color fill layer set to color. That's 60, in this case, 69%, and just paint over the blue.
Damn.
'Cause if you just desaturate, it's going to be gray. So, you can go around and do that to everything in here. I think I probably did that. That's probably for the pillow. Yeah. The pillow on the inside. Is it? Yeah. It's subtle. Super subtle.
Super. So subtle, bro.
So
subtle.
But you can go kind of crazy and sample colors over the entire image and balance all the colors out. It's a labor intensive process, but it can really define a space.
Oh yeah.
I do it a lot with like commercial interiors, like office spaces. Like a lot of the furniture is so repetitive. Like there'll be like a lot of the same office chairs, and if you can get them all the same color,
right?
If they're all blue, and just making sure they're all blue all around, it cleans it up. Like, and it's pretty easy.
I find with our office interiors retouching, we like if there's a gradient of natural to perfection, we tend a little more towards like perfection than natural for some reason.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of it depends on which one it is. Yeah, and like the walls tend to be a little whiter than like if we're talking about like in comparison to like a residential home. Yeah, they're much cleaner.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Seemed like
it's probably a desaturation of yellows. I don't know.
Yeah, there's
maybe
affecting
it's
over in there.
Subtle. I'm gonna guess it's yellows.
These
nope. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it was. Sometimes or maybe it's blues. Yeah, it's cyans. So okay. So that's probably. It's subtle. There's some blues in here around the bar top.
Yep.
That are being pulled out. Cyans and blues. But anyways, I was saying sometimes I'll make like a selection and I'll just use a adjustment layer just to hold the selection in a mask, so I can just keep reusing it.
Right.
But it's not actually an adjustment. It's just a placeholder, basically. That's probably desaturating. Yeah. Okay. So if you look at the column there, that's pulling out that yellow, and it's pulling out the yellow up here, and just neutralizing the whites.
Such a delicate
they're also
balance.
subtle. I can't see what they're doing. This is for outside. Oh, it's pulling down the yellows in the grass there.
Okay.
Curves layer just in the center of the image.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess at this point I'm ready to bring in the lifestyle.
Okay.
And I'll usually put that towards the top of the stack here. So if a client wants the image delivered like this, or with lifestyle, then I can just come in and turn the layer off, and I don't if it's below a bunch of other layers, then I have to consider what those are doing.
Right.
So the higher I can put that up, and it's usually under the global adjustments, which don't affect, like if I turn this off, it doesn't affect like a layer really.
Right.
So I can do it quickly and not think about it.
That's nice. Anytime you can not have to rethink things.
Because it's So let's see. Here's the lifestyle there.
Yeah.
I've already cut them out.
Yeah, to adjust the
rough cutout.
Yeah.
Because they're shot with natural light, you know, it really kind of matches pretty close. You can see here before I've really kind of fine tuned it. It's still bright around her.
Yeah.
And then so I got my rough cutout, and then I think I'm working on just matching it to the surrounding environment.
Yeah, you can kind of see the blending in that wood
darkening
past
and then just matching the color. It's always brightness and contrast, and then like a color match.
Right.
And that'll get you there. I think he was pretty easy because he's kind of backed up against that wall. So this one was probably the harder one because she's so backlit. That's the cutout. It's just a rough cutout. It doesn't have to be like perfect. Like, you know, you don't have to pen tool around her or something because she's got that blur going on. So they tend to be pretty rough. Again, because it's just a natural shot. There's no, if you had flashed it or something, you'd probably have to cut it out because it would be affecting other things.
You'd have to go crispy.
You have to go crispy. And then I'm just matching her to the environment. Again, it's just curves and color. That's almost, you see it here, see it here. That's it for the lifestyle. Scale it down. There we go. Gradient at the top.
That gradient helps push the focus down more to the center of the image.
Required at the end of an image. You're always just checking, like, am I too bright on top and bottom?
And that's generally my most strong and contributive feedback I ever have is like, more vignette.
Well, you're always just trying to focus the attention further to the center. And then just an overall like contrast layer for the whole thing. You don't want this to be too bright, right? You don't.
No.
So I think that's pretty good. And then so if I was to come back, I could just turn this off and I don't have to adjust anything because the only effect I have is the one up top, and that's clearly not interfering with the lifestyle. So on, off, and then export a second version.
Nice.
And then straighten it out.
Straightening the layer, and that's it.
That's it. That's all.
Now toggle between the first, last. That's just pretty amazing to, go from that to all the subtleties that get you there as far as color and emphasis and everything else. It's fairly impressive, Tim.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. This one probably took a while just because the windows. I mean, with no flash, you're really just working your highlights. And that's.
Do you think this job specifically would have been a lot easier if we had a light in the middle of the room?
It's hard to know. I don't. Maybe for like the floors.
Yeah,
the floors. I think
that's true.
Helped, but in terms of like, I don't know. Sometimes I have a hard time translating like. I want a flash layer, but I don't know on site like if what I'm asking for is necessarily like easily achievable or something, So I mean, I really like that this like just the little coffee table in front of the sofa here has a shadow line going across it from the flowers, and it gives it that feeling of directional light, but it's soft. And I mean, obviously, I think you did a great job on this. It's always a thing of like, do we add light here or don't we? What's it going to do? How's it going to affect the feel of the post-production if we do have a lighting layer that we're pulling from? That's usually my real thought process is I try and only add strobe
if we have to.
Right. Yeah.
And sadly for your plight in life, I favor on making your life more difficult for a better end result, which, sorry, but
No, it's
you have to have in mind, like, if we have a strobe layer here, would it in post-production potentially push it away from the natural feel? Because I'm always trying to come closer to reality on things and not let it go too far into we can make this perfect feel. Right. So that's always a fine line, a balance. And when I see the real kind of beautiful gritty images that I see some people do, I'm like, wow, that's what I want to communicate. But you always have to balance that with your client wanting to sell perfection,
right?
In a way, so it's a hard thing. But
yeah, and I think now that we're shooting with the Fuji camera, working with natural light without a strobe, like, there's just so much more latitude.
Oh yeah,
it really makes a huge difference in terms of, like, because I remember working with the Canon. I think when I started, you had like the Mark II.
Yeah.
You have to use, like, to do an image like this with those files, you'd have to use like 6 or 7 of the bracketed images just to get the highlights in. And we're doing this now with like 2 images. And it's just made life so much easier.
The only thing I'd further critique here is this kind of wood in the top portion there, and this wood and that wood. Probably desaturate and maybe darken them just a tiny bit.
I didn't do my usual, like I'd been saying over the past couple images we've looked at, like just that global yellow that you pull out, like 15% of it.
Oh,
I should have done that. I don't know. I can see now that that, especially that part. But
if you go back and look at your images and don't find something you'd change, you're either not growing or you're lying.
Yeah. And I'm almost like, I can always say, like, I still don't like this. There's still something I want to keep. I can keep fixing things.
It's going to make you a little anxious and a little unpleasant of a person to be around at times, but you're going to continually improve at what you do. So just know how to deal with that in your personal life, but apply it to your professional.
We're just giving ourselves critiques here. So it's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
So
I was just thinking about that this morning. Like, your goal in life should be to not get emotional about anything anyone could say about you.
Right.
Because your goal should be to either receive the criticism if it's correct, or stand your ground with rationality and logic and explain why you have that position, and to be open to changing that position. Like, if you're not going to grow, and you're not going to be open to the other points of perspective that could add to what you're doing,
Right.
So it's a weird dynamic. But,
It's a weird dynamic.
Anywho.
But so join us
on the next image, which will be the exterior.
Yeah, we're going to that exterior shot on the corner of the street there.
Corner street there,
at
right
dusk,
there, guys.
So tune in.
All right, tune in, click in, support, subscribe, like, share, feel, think, execute, criticize, whatever. Execute as in do, not kill. We're not supporting that. Please don't flag this video for inappropriate extreme content, blah, blah, blah. See you in the next one.
Later.